Hello, everyone. This is Mick from Yamdu. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be taking a look at um, everything to do with Yamdu's travel management system. So first of all, if maybe someone could confirm that you can hear me okay, just to make sure that there's no last minute issues in the chat, that would be great. But I think we should be good. So if you could let me know, that would be wonderful. Okay, perfect. I can see it. So thanks, Julie. Thanks, Christensen, everyone. That's great. So let's jump right in. Thanks for joining. And yeah, the travel management and the sustainability management tools within Yamdu are quite new. They have been requested for a long time from many of our community, I think, because it's obviously something that people sometimes struggle with. There are a lot of different things to manage, and of course, it can be easy to lose information or run into communication difficulties or simply spend a lot of time doing something that could be better managed. So I'm just going to take you through a quick presentation and then we can jump directly in and take a look. And afterwards, of course, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. Just so you know as well, afterwards, you're very welcome to trial the feature. And if you want to do a follow-up meeting, for example, just to talk it through and look at all of the various tools in more detail, of course, we can do that. So don't be afraid to ask. So I hope all of you can see my presentation. If not, again, just let me know. So travel and sustainability within Yamdu. So again, to point out quite clearly, um, there's a very specific type of challenge when you look at managing this information. And we boiled it down when we talked to a lot of our clients to this statement essentially, which is how to get your cast and crew by a variety of means at a variety of times to and from the shooting location in the most efficient and cost effective manner possible without any surprises. So it sounds okay, perhaps quite simple, but it's very difficult to do. And there's a lot of different variables involved in this. And of course, if it's not effectively managed, you run into problems quite quickly. So how do we actually do this to get everyone together, take them to the place we need them to be, and then get through production in an effective way? Let's take a look. So just to give you a sense of where things currently stand in the industry and the feedback we received as we were exploring this tool, as we were building it, and as we were taking feedback, what we noticed is there are a lot of co-productions. It's in Europe, it's also in North America. There are global shooting possibilities. It's not just the case that people shoot where they used to or in a certain locale within a certain radius of where they're based. It is now a much more global industry, and you have tax rebates and lots of different things that are attractive. And it means, of course, if you're shooting somewhere else, a lot of the travel management aspects become more complicated. There's also, of course, sustainability factors for funding and planning. It varies from place to place, but in a lot of places, you need to have some sort of sustainability tracking in order to get funding, or you need, at the very least, to provide some information to your financial partners or other people involved in the project. And of course, there are lots of location recce's, more than previously, according again to our clients, and it's a lot of information to manage. So our hope is that it can be effectively done directly in Yamdu. So moving on, just to give you a sense of how we built this, because everything we do is based on feedback from our community. And we're very lucky to have people all over the world who can give us feedback on how they find things, how they do things that they might like to improve. So we asked a very simple question, which is how do you manage the travel and accommodation requirements for cast and crew on your projects? The answer was some variation generally on spreadsheets, emails, and phone calls. Okay, it might sound quite simple, but you put all of these things together and you add volume and you subtract time, and very quickly this becomes quite complicated, quite frustrating. Things get lost, things get miscommunicated, and you run into problems. So that's, of course, the primary starting point. Okay, we know the workflow people have, we know the information they're trying to track. What can we now do to build something that's more effective? So we also asked, of course, as a follow-up, a very simple question. We didn't mean it to be a leading question, but we wanted to know, is this an easy and reliable process? And the answer quite clearly was that no, it's confusing, it's disorganized, It's full of misinformation and miscommunication, which is often just as bad as sharing the wrong information. And it's also full of last minute scrambling. So we obviously collected a lot of feedback, and we heard a lot of horror stories about last minute problems getting people to a certain place, people arriving at the wrong location, hotel rooms that weren't booked, for example, and all of the things that can really cause trouble. It's one thing if it's a technician who has not got a room, for example, and you have to then figure out how to solve this. It's another thing when it's maybe an A-list actor who needs something and doesn't have it, or there's been a mix-up on dates. So no matter what the scale of the production is, this can be a significant problem. And we really wanted to understand the workflow. I think that was, from our perspective, quite important. So when we actually discussed this, what we understood was that you have line producers and coordinators gathering information, you have interns, you have lots of different people involved, and um, basically you have to figure out how and when people arrive at a destination. So you have to know for how long people will stay. You have to research and then you have to cross-reference information. You have to email potential flights, for example, or train trips or hotel accommodation to the various decision makers involved. And then, of course, you have to document all of the detail and manage all of the files and documentation and everything else. So you have to communicate the logistics and the costs to the people who finally make the decision. And after approval, then of course you have to make sure that everything is correctly booked at the agreed cost or at least close to it. Um, of course, people who are doing this need relevant user information. So how do I gather details I might need to create bookings because maybe we're using a special account that we use for frequent flyer miles or things like this. So we need to get the information from people. So collect all of that detail. And then once we've created bookings, we need to collect all of the booking numbers and the boarding passes and the tickets, and then distribute them to everyone involved. So again, it's a complicated process. It can be 5 people or it can be 200 people. And of course, you need to track and confirm everything along the way. So it's no good to just book something if it's not communicated to the person involved, if it's not clear to the approver that this is all as we planned. And then, of course, you need to be able to oversee all of that information so that you can very easily then see if everything is running to plan. So ultimately, you need to react to the issues that may arise and you need to update management as things change. And of course, you need to collect all relevant information in one place for future reference. So as you can see, running through a simplified workflow where you have the back and forth between different parties on the project, it is very difficult to organize, share, approve, track, and archive travel information. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I think all of those different processes are very important. It's also very difficult to communicate the information. If you have one booking for one person, that could involve a couple of phone calls, it could involve a booking website, it could involve then sharing information, asking for confirmation, and it adds up, especially if you're working at volume. So that's a challenge in itself. And of course, if you're not managing this effectively, if you're using a spreadsheet or you're using some file management system and you're just trying to track everything as best you can, it can go wrong, frankly, and it can be difficult to do. So you have lost or hard to find information. And then, of course, costs can be unclear. We made a booking, we know where it was, we think we know the dates, but what did we pay for this? Well, I need to go now and find that information and check while I'm trying to do 20 other things as well. And any problems that arise, and this was something that popped up quite a bit, are expensive, especially as time gets closer to production, especially when you're in production. This can be very, very damaging. So if these things arise, if problems arise, they can be expensive. They can also be difficult to fix. In this industry, people will always find a solution, but it can be problematic and difficult, and you might have to deal with people who are upset or have been discomforted by whatever went wrong. Again, it's perfectly natural, as unfortunate as it is, that when people are just trying to take care of the logistics of getting people from A to B and getting them a place to stay at B, the environmental and the sustainability questions take a back seat. And it's natural, it's human nature. And of course, people will pay more attention to these things if they can manage it effectively. So that's, of course, what we want to do. So you have very little oversight of what's going on. You have a lot of confusion. You can have a lot of time drains. One thing we found out as well when we talk this through and as we've been showcasing this to various users is that they themselves didn't realize how much of a time drain travel management was, for the simple fact that they didn't consider an alternative. There was a way of doing things that they had cobbled together, and that was enough from their perspective. It's a perfectly understandable scenario again, but when you realize that you're putting hours of time or days of time into a process that isn't the best fit for what you want to do, that's a sobering realization. So again, we will never say that what we've put together is perfect, but we're trying to provide a solid foundation for managing this information as best as possible. So again, just to give you a little sense of what the feedback we've gotten, what we've understood, we're dealing with lots of different people: the producers, line producers, production managers, coordinators, interns, assistants. There's a lot of people involved in the process. If you add in sustainability, you have, of course, green consultants as well. So you have lots of people with a stake in getting this together and getting this right. So then you have to research, you have to get quotes, you have to check prices, you need to then have those approved, you need to collect bookings, you need to manage documentation, and it's a lot of work in itself. How do you do that effectively? How can you refer to that information easily? Of course, it's a problem for anyone on any production. And then, of course, distribution and communication is key. If you have to do everything just to collect information, and then you have to start another process simply to distribute the detail, that's another annoyance. And of course, we want to avoid that. And we have an existing infrastructure which allows you to distribute quite easily, we hope. So why not make that part of the process too? And finally, of course, tracking. It's one thing to know what you want to do, but it's another thing to see how everything is progressing. So if you can track information clearly, if you have a nice interface to engage with, it should make everything a lot more straightforward. So that's basically a little overview of what it is we've been trying to do. This is the starting point. As with everything in the software, we'll continue updating things. We'll try and make sure that we add things. We're looking forward to taking much more feedback now. We've rolled it out with certain users to take a closer look. But I think we're really excited then to see a broader feedback from the whole Yamdu community about what's great, what could be improved, and any other things that we may not have considered, because we're always open to these things. So it's enough to show you a presentation and take you through. Let's now take a look at how Yamdu provides a single source of truth, which I guess some of you will recognize as a little slogan, a little mantra we have internally here, for all of your travel and sustainability management. So I'm just going to share my screen right now, and hopefully all of you can see my Yamdu interface in one moment. And if not, again, please let me know. So I'll just wait for confirmation because I hate to move forward without being sure. So if someone could just basically let me know if you see now my Yamdu interface, that would be very beneficial. So that's a yes from Octavia, thank you. And I think we're good to continue. So you can see now that we have here in Yamdu travel and sustainability under the planning headline. So where do we start here? The first thing you'll see is an overview. So what information do we have? This is a list of the crew members involved on our project, which of course we've collected as we've built the project. That's already part of the Yamdu information. So you're not re-adding that information, you're not re-entering detail. We have all of this detail, so why not put it to good use for managing this travel information? So what are the crew doing? I can immediately start scrolling through here and see for each person what their plan is. Are they traveling now to a certain location? Are they flying, in this case, from Munich to Los Angeles, for example? And where are each of them staying? And for how long are they staying there? So this is very much just about an overview of dates, for example, and details. So we can see that today or yesterday or a few days ago, in fact, one of our team flew out from one place to another, and they're now staying for 2 weeks at a certain location. So we can see this for everyone. We can scroll through and we'll see that Different people are traveling at various times depending on the group they're traveling with. Our director is flying from Tokyo, for example. He's getting a taxi and then he'll travel over. We have other people flying from different locations. So that's a starting point. We can see quite clearly when people are traveling and where they're staying and for how long. You can also see this information for the cast. So you can see here too, I've just switched to the cast view, and we can see again, okay, on March 1st, we have some of the cast members flying. Maybe there's some of the, in this example, German cast members flying to LA, but we also then, for example, have people that are flying at a later date from another location. So we can see with Sydney and Ewan here that they're flying from New York to LA instead, and they're staying for a shorter period of time. Maybe they have fewer scenes to shoot. And of course, you'll have certain actors and certain cast members who will be staying in, let's just say, more upmarket accommodation, and you might have others staying in still quite nice, but maybe not as fancy places. And of course, when it comes to the crew, that can vary as well. We hope everyone is treated quite well and gets a nice, comfortable room. But I guess everyone knows that there can be tiers, I guess, about the kind of places that people can end up staying. But ultimately, everyone has full control over this. So you can see here too that we have an inbuilt approval process. If something is approved, it just appears as it should. There's nothing flagging that there's any issue. But if something is not approved, it will tell you directly that it's not. That means that somebody who has the ability to do this needs to approve this. And of course, that can be done by decision makers, people who have access rights to this information. It's not as if everyone can come in here and see all detail, especially about executive level travel, but the main administrators and company higher ups can, of course, do so. And we will share this information out with everyone as we go. So let's say we want to create a journey. Let's see what that looks like. And you can see here under the headline journeys, we have many different trips involved. So first of all, we can name quite clearly what we're doing. Maybe we're doing a location recce in one location for a co-production. Then we're doing some recce's in LA, for example, for an extended period. Our director is flying in at a certain point. The executive team is flying from one location to another. The production office team might follow a few days later, for example. And then we have to get the actors of various stripes to the locations too. So we have lots of approved things that have been approved by someone clearly on a certain date. So we have there's no doubting that someone reviewed this information and is clear on what actually is planned. So you see this, you see the start and the end dates, you can see the travelers involved, and you can see lots of other details too. You have the ability to select the columns that are displayed. So that's, I think, quite an important function. And any one of these things here, you can see if I want to take a look at what the production team schedule looks like, what their journeys are, I can see it right here. I open up the journey, and you can see then that I have all of the different leg information. So who is traveling here? Who's involved in this trip? Should we display this to everyone in the project calendar? Is this approved? Well, I can see it's been approved by James Miller. Already. And then I can see all of the legs. So, okay, the team might have to make their own way to the airport, or maybe we're adding a leg prior to this where we collect them and take them there in a minibus, for example. But we can see where they're flying, when they leave. It also factors in the time difference so that they'll arrive at a different time on the same day. So they might be flying to LA. Well, LA is 9 hours behind Munich, and they'll pretty much arrive at the time they left, or maybe a slightly different time. But you can see, you can enter that detail. You can enter the airline, the flight number, of course, the booking number. So when the team gets there, they can quote that or whatever the case might be. And we can see that, okay, unfortunately, this time they're traveling economy, but you have, of course, options to choose different levels as necessary. So let me just leave it on economy for now. From the sustainability perspective, you have the ability to enter detail. So if you enter a distance for a certain type of flight, Yamdu will actually start calculating the average consumption for a flight like this. So of course, not always will you have the exact detail. Sometimes you will for certain types of journeys, but Yamdu will pre-populate the detail for you and add information based on the information that we're working with. And we'll see more on that later. You can see here too that we can attach files and we can attach, our people can attach receipts too. So we can, of course, add the boarding passes. So everyone involved will receive an email shortly telling them what the trip is, what's planned, and all of the information they need, like boarding passes and so on. We could also add, of course, notes, any important detail, anything that's important. But we can go down through the legs. We can see that we arrive at the airport, we take a train, we get then a taxi from the train station to the hotel. We stay there for 2 weeks or however long it might be, or even longer in this case. And then we all get together again, take a taxi back to the airport, and fly back a few weeks later. So it's very, very clear. It's one step after the other. You can add and remove legs as you need to, and everything should be quite clear. So I can save this as a draft and close it and come back to it at any point, but I can also save and share this. So I just want to show you in this view how that would work. So I have, of course, my recipients already entered here. I've at least selected some of them, the ones with, I guess, real email addresses rather than the fake ones for demonstrations. But you can select everyone who should be part of this, and you can create mailing lists, and you see quite clearly who the recipients will be. You can see that, okay, we have a subject line, which is travel plan. You can directly ask the recipient to confirm receipt, which, okay, I think in this case I would like to do because I'd love for them to tell me, I got the information, everything is clear, there's nothing I'm not up to date on. You can see too that you can write a message. So you can say, hey, everyone, here's the trip detail. Here are the boarding passes attached with the booking numbers. If you have any questions, let me know. And then we can say, okay, let's look at the details. So, okay, it's quite clear. We have the legs, we have the times, the arrival dates, and so on, what kind of journey it is. And we can see, okay, I have my signature here. I can send this out through my personal email address. And I've attached the boarding passes for both of the flights too. So I just need to send this, and now everyone will receive the information. They can see the summary, they'll have the attached files, and like I just did, they can also see that there's a confirm button, so they can be very nice and let me know that this is fine, everything is clear, and yeah, I think I have the detail. But of course, I'm letting them know, if you're not sure, just contact me directly. So this is the concept, that you have cast and crew oversight, that you can see all relevant information, and that you can track everything effectively. Within the project too, you can also oversee transportation. So if you have a fleet of vehicles, for example, you can manage them. You can see, okay, we've got maybe 4 different cars to work with. Maybe we're renting these. Maybe these are belonging to users or crew members that are willing to drive and take certain people with them. So you can see the different information. So what kind of cars are we working with? What sort of fuel do they use? All of this detail can be entered. So we can see the energy source, the gear shift detail, who are we renting from, the vendor information, all of that information. So we can see with everything, if we click into any specific vehicle, all of the information that might be relevant. So who are we traveling with? How many seats do we have? Is it perhaps an on-camera or in-camera vehicle? Perhaps not. And how much are we paying? Is it a day rate? What does it look like? And then any other information that might be relevant. So you can clearly track all of this detail very effectively. And if, of course, we're working with a vendor, then we can see that as well. We can see the name of the vendor, the name of the car hire company, anything that might be relevant. So we can see that detail and all of the relevant information. And finally, we also, of course, as we add all of these different pieces of detail and we add all of the accommodation information, we can see that too. So you can see where people are staying, and you can see a list. There's quite a bit of information to load, but you can see the different hotels we're working with, the travelers that are staying there, how long they're staying there, and how many rooms we're booking in total, contact information, so we can see, okay, who's the contact person there, and lots of other detail too that we can fill. We can also see, of course, the level of the hotel and whether or not it's certified green. Again, a sustainability question. So you can see as we go, we're tracking all of the information. We can see everything quite clearly. We have oversight of all of the relevant things. And I guess the other very important thing is you have to track this stuff. Maybe you need to take it out to manage some of the costs involved. Maybe you want to export it and add some detail to a sustainability tracker, for example. Well, you can export information throughout Yamdu, whether it's a little PDF list that's nice and clean and clear, whether it is a CSV or an Excel file, for example. You are able to take all of this information out, not just for the accommodation, but also for things like the journeys, for example, and other information. You can always export detail and you can see then what is required. So throughout Yamdu, I'm sure all of you are well aware in the system at large, we try to provide efficient export opportunities, and it's the same here. So if you need to work externally, you want a little file for reference, it's there and you can work with it. So that is, I think, an overview of everything you have to work with within Yamdu. Just to reiterate as well, with each of these different journeys, you can, of course, open them up and add detail. So whenever I want to edit something, whenever I need to add an additional piece of information, whether it might be an additional leg or anything else like this, it's quite easy to do. Just to show you, when I click add a new leg, it's basically just asking me, okay, how are you traveling? Is it an accommodation? Is it a train? Is it a plane? What might it be? So whatever I select, I can then fill this out. So we can see, okay, leg 7, it's going from an airport. Are we then traveling where and how? Is it one of the cars we have at our disposal? Is it a hotel we have already added? What kind of vehicle is this? Is it a bus? Is it a van? Is it a truck? And then who is the driver? Do we just need the name of the driver? Will they collect us at the airport? Or is it a user who's going to take the team back because they have space, or their partner is willing to come and collect everyone? All of the different things that you might factor in. License plate, notes on the driver. I can input all of this information here as I want, and I can add consumption information and cost details and distances involved and anything else. So it's designed to make it very, very easy to track all of that information. So yeah, we're sending it out, we're sharing the information, we can track then all of the different journeys. We have an overview so we can see in real time everything that's taking place. And of course, the other important thing is then managing sustainability. So you can see here we have sustainability. And how does that relate to travel? Well, it pulls in information from a lot of different locations. We can see here we have locations. So we can see, for example, that we have different locations that we're shooting at. And they have, for example, different types of energy available. So if we're shooting at RE Studios, for example, we might have on-site energy. It's a studio and they're very advanced. They have renewable energy. Another place we're shooting at is also on-site energy, but it's a bit of a mix because it's not quite all renewable just yet. And then we might have an outdoor location where we're going to be using a generator because we essentially don't have another option, and it's non-renewable. So you can track these things. You can see how you're using that information. And as you enter all of the detail, which you can see for RE Studios here, an example, you can specify everything, how much consumption we expected to have, how much we actually had, the start and end readings on the meter, the cost that we went for, and the cost that we had, and of course, the variance as well. So all important detail to track, all becoming very important for funding and other things throughout Europe, more so as well in North America as well, and in many other places too. So you can track all of this detail, and we'll summate the most important detail for you as well. So you have quite a clear overview of how much of the various types of energy you planned to and actually consumed. And is it in line with your aims? And of course, you can export that detail too for use however you might want to. Also here, just to show you, you have a catering overview as well. This might seem slightly less elaborate, but it's important to track how many people are working. Do they have any special dietary needs? Are they willing perhaps to forgo meat once or twice a week to lower the carbon footprint? All of these things can be factored in. And finally, when it comes to travel here, I think this is quite a cool feature, and you can see it as something I'm currently building as I work on this project, you can see here that we can track all of the different types of transportation we use. And this is a very helpful overview. So I can see the distances involved, I can see consumption. There are various rules that I won't go into now because you'll basically very intuitively see how they function as you add information and how Yamdu calculates detail. It's designed to save you time. But the idea is you can actually assess how you're traveling. So are we kind of foregrounding rail travel because it's a better way for the environment to travel? Is that a possibility on a project? Of course, in Europe, it might be something that can be quite easily done between two cities or locations that are not very far apart. It's a completely other landscape in many parts of the world, America, Canada, of course, as well, because the distances are vast and it may be necessary to take flights nevertheless. So, of course, you can track, okay, are we taking commercial flights? Have we had to have private flights? Did we charter a flight? And of course, did we keep to a minimum the number of flights we took? So you can very clearly see here. You can also see in the general overview in the travel tool, um, you know, do we have 5 different people traveling over the course of a week on 3 different flights? Is that necessary? Could we get everyone to fly on Wednesday rather than 2 people on Monday, one person on Friday, and 2 people on Wednesday? Can we actually think this through? And if we can do that, and if we can get more people together on the same trip, we're of course limiting the footprint that we're working with in terms of CO2 and all of these things that are being tracked and will be consistently tracked as time goes on. And I think over the course of the next couple of years, and especially over the course of the next decade, every production will have to reckon with this detail and will have to show their workings and show what they've done to remove this. So you can see here, you can track these things, you can see the distances involved, you can see the consumption and the variance of the consumption, and you can see then, of course, costs involved and other details and anything else that might be relevant. And finally, of course, you can export this as well, just as you can the other ones. So a clear overview of every possible type of journey that might be undertaken, displayed, I hope, quite straightforwardly in a list view here in a column and row fashion that you can play around with and export if you want to play around with the spreadsheet as well. So our team spent a lot of time building this. I think they've done a really great job. And of course, you see then as you populate things, you think about the way you do things. And to give one example of a conversation we had during the week, if you're traveling between Berlin and Munich, for example, or even between, let's say, New York and Philadelphia, um, there are train options available, or there are perhaps even bus options available, or there are different things you can do uh, to travel. So that's something, again, to keep in mind. You can actually weigh up different options and see how things are lining up across the whole project. And again, same idea with accommodation. Are the places we're staying in certified green? How long are we staying there? And other detail, again, that you can uh, basically engage with as you wish to. That's the concept, that's the idea. So just to reiterate again, the idea of the travel tool is that it fits into the existing Yamdu infrastructure. Of course, in Yamdu, you have crew information, you have cast information, you have all of your project information. So why not, of course, have all of that coalesce in a travel tool? Why not take the detail that's already there and simply start creating bookings? So let's go through the cast, let's create journeys, let's see, for example, what our plan is. So we can see now and into March what we have planned. When are people traveling? Who are they traveling with? What time did they leave? When will they arrive? Who should we contact? Where's the driver? Are there any potential pitfalls that we need to avoid? That's the concept. It's designed to be intuitive. It's designed to be easy to add information. And then you can track the journeys, the different legs, the transportation information, vehicle information, accommodation detail, and then see how all of those different things tie into, of course, the sustainability aspects. So that is pretty much everything I wanted to outline in this. It's a very structured webinar, I hope. It's a very clear one on 2 new tools. Of course, if you've wider questions about Yamdu, we have a lot of existing information on YouTube. You can also, of course, contact us directly for more information about anything. But I hope the overview has been quite clear. And at this point, I would like to ask, are there any questions? who would like to ask something about Yamdu and the travel tool, we're very happy to answer it. And if we can't answer everything today, we can, of course, answer directly afterwards. Just so you all know, of course, you would be sent the presentation. So, Louis, perfect timing. Yes. Basically, once this ends, you will be sent an email with a link to the recording of the whole thing, and we'll probably load this as well on YouTube as soon as possible. But the important thing I would point out is that we're here to talk to you. So if you have questions, if you want to discuss this further, and everybody has different needs and different sizes of projects, we'll send you an email and we will also follow up directly. We like to be engaged, we like to be proactive. So we'll ask you if you're interested, or if you don't reach out to us directly, do you want to trial it? Do you want to play around? Do you have any additional questions? We can jump on a call or an e-meet and discuss in more detail. So we're always very happy to do that. And I hope all of you at this point are very familiar with the fact that we like to discuss things. We're always available. We're quite open about what we plan to do. And I can assure you actually that we have some additional things coming in relation to planning both travel and sustainability that should be quite interesting to a lot of people. There are things in the works. You may have seen some announcements already. I won't again go into them now, but we want to keep pushing this and keep building this. We've already taken feedback that we'll enact. And if any of you have additional feedback, all you need to do is let us know. So again, the chat is open if anyone wants to ask anything. If I don't answer in this meeting, we can also follow up afterwards as well. Um, so yeah, Liam's question about the actual energy consumption. It's a very good question. It's a very important question. So we have different ways of doing this. If distance, for example, is the only location you're working with, that will be used for a rough calculation. And we factor in then the type of journey, the distance involved, the type of transportation, of course, to the best of our ability. If you can input that detail yourself, or you have a more accurate assessment, or you know the exact figures, you can also enter that detail as well. So it's built in a certain way that is designed to update in accordance with the best information currently available. That's the idea. And Liam, I can send you a more general outline of how that functions after this as well. Of course, that's part of a discussion if anyone is playing around with the system too. But yes, important question. There are different ways to track that detail. So we have a number of different ways to do that. And it basically works in a very simple way. We work with the information we have. If all we have is distance, that's the starting point. If information is then additionally entered, then we can have a more accurate assessment as we go. But we work with some of the best people in the environment and sustainability side of things. We've taken their feedback, and of course, they're tracking averages and all of the relevant data to make sure they have the most accurate detail. So, of course, we try to use their expertise to our advantage. Um, Anything else? If not, of course, I can end this meeting. I hope it's been very beneficial. All of you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the full recording. Please feel free to rewatch it, or take a closer look, or to share it with anyone who might be interested. And of course, do not be afraid to reach out. You can reach me at mick@yamdu.com. That's MICK at yamdu.com. But basically, any email address at Yamdu you may already be familiar with, you can use. Don't be afraid to reach out, and we'll make sure that if you need a more in-depth discussion, we will provide that. So really, thank you all for joining. I hope it's been helpful. I look forward to chatting to all of you quite soon, and have a very nice day. So thanks again, and yeah, all the best.